So I posted two posts recently. Both of them have been active, I guess I should say. And they should be, right? One of which almost everyone got wrong, which is pretty embarrassing. Being that we have a lot of educated people who responded. But they said 90% of the people would get it wrong. So let's go over the triangle question first, right? All right, guys, like, this just goes to show that people can't be trusted just because they're just not right. And there's a lot of people that put an answer down there that is wrong. Flat out wrong, okay? Like, at the very closest, guys, anything with a round side is not a triangle, okay? Triangle has 4 or 3 straight edges, okay? So the closest thing that you're gonna get is right in here. And in here, you've got 1 triangle, 2 triangles, 3 triangles, okay? 3 triangles. This just goes to show you that people aren't accurate. They're just not right, okay? So the fact that so many people claim to be right is not right. There were people even liking other people's wrong posts, okay? And this is a simple question. Now, we're gonna talk about the next post, which is the post about HE double hockey stick. And the reason that I'm even bringing this up is that I've got some little people in my life, and there's the opportunity to start sharing them things about the world and telling them how the world works, or at least how I believe the world works, which is how basically my parents thought that they think that the world works, right? So as a child, you believe what your parents say, like, even if it's not true. Now, luckily, my sister, she didn't believe as much as I did about what my parents thought. But nonetheless, I believed what my parents thought. And I believe that part of that happens is that I'm what's called twice exceptional. And twice exceptional means that I am really great at a couple things and I'm really bad at a couple things. Typically, I'm on probably the hyperfocus, ADD, ADHD spectrum. And when I hear things and they make sense, I dive into them and I learn them and I suck them up and I take all of the information that was given to me. So I had some information given to me at a very young age. That information was that I was born a sinner and that I was destined to burn in hell unless, okay? That is a super serious topic. Super adult conversation. And the fact that we throw around this concept of eternal hell to every little kid who walks down the street or walks into a church is absolutely insane. That is an adult conversation, and that is one of the most terrifying questions that you can introduce to a human's brain. It is called existential questions. What happens when we die? It is one of the most mind-boggling, confusing, keep you up at night questions, okay? And here we are, boom, just shoving it right down kids' throats. Now, I love the fact that a lot of the people that this also happened to turn this into well, there's grace and there's happiness and there's love. Okay, got it. My little brain didn't pick it up that way, okay? My little brain listened and learned. My little brain ate it up and said, oh my God, I have the one answer to keep everybody from burning all day long. I was 5 years old. So we're gonna unpack what that really does in the long term here coming up. And we're gonna talk about the truth about it. We're gonna look into where it comes from. And we're going to look into how to possibly address this topic if that is the angle that you want to go to. But before I do that, I want to talk about what we're taught at a young age can stick with us, okay? So a great example is that if I were to tell a child that there's sharks everywhere, okay? And right over here, I have water everywhere. Okay, this is my yard, okay? So if I caught someone teaching my innocent niece and nephew that there's sharks and alligators in this water, and that if they even get in the dinghy, something could get them, okay? You could very well terrify them to where they don't go in the water. And I tell you this not jokingly because for a long time, I was scared of sharks in the freaking pool because of a movie that I never even saw. And there's kids that think that there's sharks in the bathtub. There's kids that think there's sharks in the pool. There's kids that think there's sharks in really shallow water that you can see through. So fear doesn't know the difference between real and not when you're a child. And when you give some of these autistic spectrum, ADHD, hyper focus, hyper fixation, trauma happening children these concepts, you're asking to stunt them. You stunt people. You stunt people when you introduce scary topics at a very young age. And I love that there's salvation and grace and all of those things. But if you start with freaking hell, you have nowhere to go. That's it. Grandparents going to hell. Family, friends going to hell. Potentially them going to hell if they don't prescribe to whatever the 30,000 denominations that I grew up in. And I want to talk about another thing that's so obvious, and this is hilarious, is that, so my little sister's scared of bees, bzz, like little bumblebees, right? And so when she sees a bee, it could be a freaking football field away. She hears it, she senses it, her little bee sense goes off, and she loses her mind. She runs around like a chicken with her head cut off. Now, this is a boss babe. She's run businesses before. She's raising those kids. She's got it going on. And if you put a bee around her, you freak her out. So what happens next, and this is how this trauma gets handed down, is she instilled that fear in her kids accidentally, right? Where if the bee, it could even be like a bumblebee, not even like, I mean, okay, wasps, yellow jackets, I understand. If you're allergic, like you have some things, you have to understand your fears. But just to be scared of bees every time they come around, shoot, I have wasps flying around the sailboat all the time because they're trying to always build nests and all this thing. And if I freaked the fuck out, excuse my language, and jumped off the boat every time I saw a bee, this wouldn't work, okay? So the other day we were out and a bee, this is a little while ago, a bee came out, right? And the whole car, her 3 kids, her, even the dog was going bonkers to where it was considered dangerous, right? Now we have all overreacted to something that was only overreaction because her reaction. So she accidentally, and now she is undoing it, and we're all doing breathing exercises and we're calming down when we see bees, and we realize they don't come for us, they're kind of living their own lives, and if we come into their path, then we have an issue. But we had to break down this bee conversation because she had freaked herself out for so many years that now her kids were having the same reaction. Well, if you get scared of bees, now you can't travel because there may be a bee. You can't go in the mountains because there may be a bee. So she built this fear around bees that was unrealistic. And when I was a child, I went to sleepaway camp, which everyone should go to sleepaway camp. But they had a story about Ratman, and Ratman lived in the woods. And Ratman was kind of used to keep the kids from wandering. It was used to kind of keep everybody close together. Ratman doesn't like fires. Ratman doesn't like certain things. And the only thing that helped me sleep at night was someone else had made up a fake Ratman grave. So we would also go and see Ratman's grave so that us as a 7-year-old wouldn't be petrified of Ratman. Okay? So these fears, they stick with you and they affect so many areas of your life. And, you know, you think about a movie like The Hills Have Eyes, right? Like, I don't like scary movies. But a movie like The Hills Have Eyes is like so psychologically scary to where you have introduced these undocumented, unrealistic fears. And I know that, you know, I've got a couple of people on my posts who most of the respondents that I get on these topics are people who were indoctrinated, people who grew up at the age of 5 already agreeing that they deserved hell. So the concept of hell isn't a scary concept until you agree that you deserve hell. And that's the second part of the conversation is, hey, there's hell. Hey, you deserve it. Hey, do you agree that you deserve it? Well, shoot, man, I'm 5 years old. I want to go to the freaking park and play and get some free candy. And I got to have this conversation with my grandma or my mom or the pastor or somebody else about, yeah, okay, I agree. I need to go to hell, but I don't want to go to hell. So what do you got? Okay, you got this and that. Okay, cool, I'm in. But that sticks with you because then that repetitively happens over and over and over again. So when you introduce these concepts, the hills have eyes, bees, sharks, eternal damnation for your thoughts, like it's not fair. It's not fair to introduce that to such a young mind. Like I said, these are adult conversations. So those of us that took things seriously and that believed that it was our job to stop people from going to hell. You know how many conversations I had to have with adults when I was a child telling them that they deserved hell? I mean, before 10. I was younger than 10, and I was out what we would call evangelizing. And on some of the other topics, we're going to talk about how you can introduce hell and then still be such a hypocrite. Because I think that's even more damaging. I think that if everyone lived up to the concept that they taught their kids and were honest, I think a lot of this would get flushed out. But I think that because we aren't honest, we introduce these concepts and then we just kind of like, oh, well, I don't really believe it. And you never really unpack it, right? So no one unpacked it for me. It wasn't until almost decades later that I was like, oh, wait, maybe there's something else. Maybe that whole story isn't 100% true. Maybe God didn't create a system where 99.9% of all of his creation is going to burn in eternity forever. So let's not get into the fact that what kind of justice system is a finite crime getting an infinite punishment. But my point of this quick video is, one, look at how many wrong answers we had for a very obvious question, okay? And look at how many people below are introducing this concept to their kids at such a young freaking age. Let them play. Let them go enjoy. Let them learn how to hike. Like, I didn't have that. I had constant repetition and bombardment of these concepts at a unfair age. And I look back at my mind and how I show up and I look at the world. It was so dramatically, it is so advanced and impactful. And I think it should be noted, which I'm going to unpack a little bit more, but I think that the statistic is like 85% of the population in the United States took on this belief system before the age of 15. Before the age of 15, 85% of all believers were introduced to the concept of hell and salvation and that they needed a savior. So, can you have a God without hell? That is the question that I want to know. Is there such a system that you can have a God that created all this, but that isn't going to send 90% of the population to burn, gnashing of teeth? Like, these are adult conversations, right? Like, you don't let your kids watch The Hills Have Eyes at 5. You don't let your kids watch even Jaws. You could send a kid to watch Jaws and you could never get him back on a boat, okay? But we throw this concept of hell around like it's just like, oh yeah, it's realistic. No. First of all, let's unpack where the concept even came from. Let's talk about how many people have been, how many people have come back. Like, where is it? Like, we would never, if somebody walked around and was telling your kid that if they misbehaved, gravity would let them float away into the sky, and I told them that, hey, if you walk around with both eyes, gravity sees you and gravity floats away. Well, you would have kids walking around with one eye closed. You would be so freaking mad at me if I did it. Because all it takes is 1 or 2 times, right? Like, I only have to teach your kid 1 or 2 times, hey, my grandma, she floated away forever. You'll never see your parents again if you don't always have one eye closed. You would come to me and you would be so freaking pissed. But what we do to our kids is we tell them these things. We don't even know where they came from. Most of the things that we teach our kids came from someone above us. Like, who's just doing their best. I'm not saying no one's not doing their best, but I'm telling you, you would be pissed if I scared your kids of trees and I scared your kids of water. Could you imagine? What we do is we scare our kids of their own thoughts. We scare our kids of non people who don't believe. If you don't believe that other people are going to hell, you and I are not on the same page. So, tell me, what age is it okay to tell your kids these adult conversations? There's a lot of adult conversations that we don't teach our kids until they're adults. Why is this one conversation something that we just throw out there? Like, oh yeah, you deserve hell, but as long as you pray, you're good. No, that isn't the end of the conversation. And I love that a lot of you are like, yes, I'm saved, so I don't really think about it. But for those of us that took this seriously, for those of us that thought it was our job to save our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles, our cousins, our neighbors, for those of us that devoted a whole lot of our lives to keeping people from going to hell, to then wake up one day and be like, wait, the evidence of this is, we wouldn't believe anything else. We wouldn't believe it. I don't believe the person that put number 17 as how many triangles there were. I go and look, I pay attention, I read, what is a triangle? Who decides? What's the answer? We don't do that with these other concepts. We just throw them out there and hope that which a lot of us, it's on the rise, the amount of hyper focus, ADHD, spectrum, all of these concepts are, you're setting up the mind to be stunted because you can't trust your own thoughts. You can't trust the things around you. You can't trust a lot of things. You have to trust this concept. So the reason that I'm going live is that I have no more freaking space on any of these batteries, on any of these freaking phones. Let kids be kids. Let them enjoy some of their peace. Let them enjoy playing on the freaking field, swimming in the ocean, before you introduce these concepts. There's no God, no loving God, no just God needs a 10-year-old or less to be petrified of an afterlife. I'm just telling you. And any loving God, and listen to me, any loving God that thinks that you need to scare the living daylights out of a child and then give them an alternative is not a loving God. I'm going to say that again, and is not worth your love. Because you would not, if I went around and I scared if Uncle Augie went around and scared all of your children over sharks and alligators, and they never went into a water or a pool or freaked out every time they went to the bathtub because someone told them that a shark can come up the tube and get them while they're in the bathtub, you would call that child abuse. You would not let me around your kids. But yet, people are out there sharing this concept. Huge concept. It's a big concept, guys. It's not for a 5-year-old brain to be taught by a parent who is out doing who knows what, but then just dropping off this knowledge. So we're going to unpack this a little bit. And I have to unpack it a lot more gently than I wanted after looking at the responses. Because a lot of us, anyone in my social circle, this is all we knew. This is all we know. All we know is heaven and hell. And there's so many other options out there. We're going to ask the hard questions that none of us were allowed to ask. So thanks for joining. My understanding is that 3 is the answer to the triangle question. I also stand by the fact that it is a serious adult conversation, and I do not believe that a 4 and a 5 and a 6-year-old need to be making lifelong discussions, debates, choices, right? Like, I made a choice at 5 years old that will forever be a part of my life. It is totally a part of my psyche. And it has taken me a while to undo the concept of the fact that if I don't believe a certain thing, I burn forever. That is serious. Let me know. Tell me your thoughts. Have a great day.